So it seems that we've got some fairly massive Warhammer 40k model reveals today. No less than 5 different codexes announced, including a brand new Space Wolf launch box, Thousand Suns Automata revealed, a new World Eaters miniature, battle forces for all the deity legions, a new Dreadknight, the next mission deck for Warhammer 40k, new Tyranids Raveners and Admech servitors. Let's round up this mammoth preview and go over all that we've got. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today Games Workshop seems to have stacked a whole load of Warhammer 40k reveals all at once. Lots of codexes coming out with one single miniature to go alongside their release, the next Kill Team box and the Space Wolves being maybe the biggest headlines. This was Games Workshop's big Adepticon reveal show, and for this one it seems that they decided to change up the format a little bit. For a bunch of the previous shows they'd done a pre-recorded stream, so basically made a video and then just put it out live, but maybe trying to capture the feel of a more informal chat. For this one though, they decided to go back to going live again, and I feel like for the most part the format worked rather well. There was really quite a good focus on the actual pictures of the miniatures themselves, which in the past they have managed to somehow miss a fair bit, and it did give the chance for people to ask questions. I did find it kind of weird though, that they basically had one guy on the questions who actually picked out a bunch of genuinely very interesting things that people had asked in the chat, and then their answer to every single one was, "We can't really tell you that yet, but look out on Warhammer Community." In any case though, there was quite a lot of stuff. We were told that we'd get reveals for Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, the Old World and Kill Team. And to be honest, my hopes for 40k were at least a little bit on the tempered side this time around. It seemed most likely that we'd get some small reveals for the deity legions, given that they were the next codexes to come out, and then hopefully a couple of 40k relevant squads in the Kill Team release, but it seems that there was quite a bit more. Rounding up their teasers and reveals, Warhammer 40k both had a bunch of codex things, and also a bunch of supporting stuff on the side. Maybe the headline act is the new Space Wolves Army launch box with the first bits of their new range. Essentially 5 new or updated plastic kits revealed there, though apparently there will be more to come. Then we got the Grey Knights with a new Dreadknight sculpt on the way, and a Battleforce launch box as the first place to get that, and then the Death Guard Thousand Suns and World Eaters, all with their own Battleforce box sets, and new Automata for the Thousand Suns, and a character called a Slaughterbound for the World Eaters. Looks like no Berserker surgeons this time around. Then for Kill Team, we've got the content of the new Versus set, which is called Kill Team Typhon. This one's Tyranids Raveners versus Admech servitors. The announcement of the next season for Warhammer 40k with new chapter approved cards coming, a rather interesting looking Armageddon Crusade book, which is kind of fun to have the narrative shift back to that with a great big World Eaters Crusade about to hit it, some teasers as to the things coming next in terms of the Codex schedule for Warhammer 40k, and also the confirmation that no Codex Chaos Daemons is coming for Warhammer 40k, which maybe does feel like a bit of a tactic of announcing one faction's bad news at the same time as a whole bunch of core model reveals. Finally, there were things for the other systems as well. The most impressive thing for me being Grand Cathay revealed for the Old World, and rather than being a rebooted faction, this one was just one that they've completely designed from the ground up, I guess tying in all very well with Warhammer Total War. Let's get into it though, as there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, and first up we'll start with the Space Wolves and their army set. Fairly impressive that already after having 3 major release waves for Warhammer 40k in early 2025, we're going to be straight into another one, and it looks like it's an army launch box set the same as the Emperor's Children and similar ones. In this one there's a Wolf Priest, a Wolf Guard Battle Leader, 10 Blood Claws, 10 Grey Hunters, a Codex with a limited edition cover, and a bunch of data cards. I thought, seeing as it's a fun new Battleforce box set, it could be a good one to do for next month's giveaway. So there'll be 8 copies of this one going out to channel viewers, with the normal rules for the Auspex Tactics giveaway either being able to be entered on Facebook or via Patreon. Feel free to check back at the end of the video if you'd like to enter for this one, or the upcoming Fulgrim one that's going to happen in a few days' time. In any case, seems likely to follow the release pattern of the Emperor's Children and Death Corps. First you get this box set, then there'll be something like 1 to 2 months wait, then all the kits go on sale individually, along with a bunch of other things that we haven't had revealed just yet. Should be around $230 or around £150 or so. Getting into the units for these, and the Space Wolves seem to have done better than Blood Angels or Dark Angels in terms of kit updates, at least in terms of numbers and quantity of them. Both their battle line units have been redone. First up we've got the Grey Hunters. These are going to be the near enough Space Wolf Intercessor equivalent. Experienced battle brothers long in the tooth, fighting with bolt carbines and chainswords, maybe exhibiting a bit of the true grit pistol grip that bolt guns have. The styling on them is fairly unadorned. A lot of their bodies just look like standard intercessors or assault intercessors really, but they do have Space Wolf themed chest plates and a bunch of tokens and amulets about them, plus a bit of a mix up of a few different armor marks as well. You can see a more Firstborn Mark 7 looking helmet on the left there. I quite like their runic chainswords as well, and I guess that's the pack leader there with his plasma pistol and power axe. Here are the other 4 of the squad as well. Looks like they will be in a box set of 10. I strongly suspect that there'll be enough heads to give them all either enclosed helmets or bare heads. Here's the squad all together, and they gave us a few rules teasers, a bolt carbine with up to 3 shots, OC3 so a lot of weight on objectives, and the pack leader has a power weapon that you can trade out for a power fist, can have the plasma pistol, and apparently all Space Wolf infantry that's in Tacticus armour will be moving 7 inches, so maybe taking a bit of a leaf from the Emperor's Children book there. They're going to be extra bloodthirsty to get to the foe. Next up, we've got their more junior counterparts in the Blood Claws, young and impetuous Space Wolf recruits, donning power armour right from the start, and basically being particularly eager to throw themselves into battle. Generally looking a little bit younger and more ferocious there. It looks like the pack leader's got a lightning claw option that you can field him with, which is kind of fun. Not seen too many Primaris with those yet, and otherwise they seem at least fairly stylistically similar to the Grey Hunters. Broadly fairly unadorned Primaris, but with a bit more mixing of armour marks, and a few nods towards Space Wolf heritage, with the chest plates and trinkets and heads and things. Here's the rest of the squad. Again, there's a 10-man squad here. Interesting to see a Corvus head on the left there. It does basically look like they will be essentially the Assault Intercessor equivalent for the Space Wolves. They've read out their special rule, and it's basically the exact same one as the Assault Intercessors get in core Codex Space Marines. Reroll ones to wound, and then reroll all wounds on objectives. I guess they'll be a bit faster due to moving 7 inches, and I'm not sure if we know if the Sergeant's got any other options. I'd be surprised if they couldn't take some sort of Power Fist though. Overall, both of those feel like fairly straightforward updates for maybe the slightly less exciting rank and file, but I think it is quite nice to actually get some dedicated kits to them, as opposed to just upgrade sprues. Next up though, we've got some exciting elites with some Wolfguard Headtakers. I guess these will essentially be the updates to Wolfguard on foot, and that unit will go away. Apparently in the box set you get the 3 Space Marines that can be equipped either with dual power weapons or power weapon and shield, and then 3 Fenrisian Wolves as well. I do quite like the Space Marine Warrior models here, a lot more Space Wolf theming with those great big furred capes, looking properly like elites of the chapter, and quite nice to see the sort of rounded Viking-esque shields as well. Lots of character there, and I feel like these guys will probably be quite popular. They do also have the option to be armed with dual power weapons as well. There's a couple of different poses of them that you can see here. Looks like they're fighting with an axe in one arm and sword in the other. They did give us a few rules previews as well. If you go for the dual power weapons, apparently they get a big 6 attacks, so I guess some pretty serious melee damage coming out of them there. I'd guess they'll probably have damage too, like the Blade Guard veterans, and then I guess you've got the option of trading out some attacks for more durability with the shield in some way. Weirdly, they said that the Wolves apparently will fight as a separate unit and datasheet. I don't know if they'll now be the way that you field Fenrisian Wolves, and perhaps that kit will go away. But the Headtakers themselves get to pre-select one unit in the enemy army for devastating wounds against them, so they basically have a sort of quarry that they're extra good at killing, which could be powerful in the right situation. I feel like those ones are a little bit clunky rules, as it does mean that your opponent could just try and keep that unit away from them, or you have to predict which units are going to be venturing out to fight for the midfield first. I think they're a pretty fun little unit of elites though. Finally for the box set, we've got a couple of character miniatures. There's a new Wolfguard Battle Leader. I guess we already had a Primaris Battle Leader in their combat patrol at the moment. This guy certainly goes a little bit heavier on the Space Wolf trappings though. A nice rounded shield in a similar sort of way to the Wolfguard Headtakers, and then looks like he's got the option of Power Sword or a Thunderhammer as his main weapon. They've also shown off a bunch of different head swaps that he's got as well, and a whole bunch of Space Wolf furs, all looking rather Viking there. I guess he'll just have the Lieutenant style special rules giving you lethal hits. Finally, last but not least, we've got the Wolf Priest, basically the Space Wolf equivalent of the Chaplain, and he is fighting in black power armour there. Again, a great big fur coat, and he's got the choice of a few different head swaps. It looks like he's just armed with the Crozius and the Absolver bolt pistol. There seems to have got some sort of option to bear maybe a frost dagger there, and compared with the other chaplains, he'll also have a rule to restore wounds to his units, representing the fact that the Wolf Priest basically has the role of the apothecary as well as the chaplain within the Space Wolf hierarchy. Finally, there's the Space Wolf Codex as well. Not too many details about it at the moment, though apparently there will be 3 detachments, each of which has a saga to complete of some sort or another. In the book there'll be 20 unit datasheets, which is definitely going to be losing a few compared with the amount that they have at the moment. I'd guess that a fair few character datasheets might not survive the update. Someone did ask about Thunderwolf Cavalry as well, to which they rather pointedly didn't give an answer. If it's like the Blood Angels though, then basically nothing survived that didn't get an update besides the Baal Predator. It does seem at least kind of likely that we could see a near total clean out of Space Wolf units that don't get the Primaris treatment. I guess 20 datasheets is a fair bit more than some of them though. Games Workshop did also confirm that there will be more Space Wolf kits and reveals on the way. I think it seems very likely that we'd get Logan Grimnar and Bjorn the Fell-Handed at the very least. They seem to have been teasing those in some new artwork and a few other bits, and they both seem like fairly logical choices. Perhaps some Wolfguard Terminators will be fun to see, and I'm sure Lehman Russ will be turning up at some stage or another. He seems the most logical one to come back next, particularly if the Space Wolves are getting a big range refresh. Maybe the question more being whether or not he'll come back alongside the range refresh, or is part of an end edition campaign like the Lion was. Moving beyond the Sons of Fenris though, and we've got loads more for Warhammer 40k. The thing that seemed most guaranteed from the preview were the Chaos Codexes, and we have got the Codex covers for the World Eaters, Death Guard and Thousand Sons. I think that that's new art for all three of them, though feel free to correct me down below in the comments if I'm wrong there. It looks like the Emperor's Children, they've maybe got more generous detachments than you might expect. 5 for the World Eaters, 6 for the Death Guard and 5 for the Thousand Sons. And these will also be ones that fold in the relevant Chaos Demons into the book, so that'll be the way that you can use them as allies now, and likely just locked to the one detachment. For new miniatures, there's certainly some cool stuff, but there might be a bit of disappointment that they're not getting more. For the World Eaters, I'm afraid it does just look like they've got the single character release here. I think a lot of people were hoping that they might have a big second release wave. Things like Red Butcher Terminators, Juggernaut Cavalry, and maybe Cornate Demon Engines and things, but unfortunately it does look like they're sticking with a fairly compact miniature range at the moment. I was also a little bit surprised by this one, that the character they've gone for is basically an 8-bound leader, rather than that Berserker Surgeon that they teased in lore quite a lot. I'm still absolutely sure that will be a miniature that arrives for them at some point, but it seems that it's not this time round. In any case, this guy is basically an 8-bound in chief, a generic character, and while the 8-bound are bound with 8 blood letters, this guy is bound with a Bloodthirster, so presumably extra powerful and dangerous there. Looks like he's got a chain blade and also one that's fused with his limb, and I can't help but think that he's going to pack a massive punch in melee, harnessing all the power being possessed by a greater demon, I guess. It does answer the rumour engine as well for that weird mutated chain blade. Seemed pretty guaranteed to be Chaos, and now we've found out it's him. For the Thousand Sons, again it's just a one kit release, but this time it's not just a character, and what they've got are the Sekhetar robots. And these ones certainly were teased in lore quite a bit, some really specific things in the Pariah Nexus lore that we had recently. The idea being that the Thousand Sons have basically dug up some ancient automata that they had from the days of the Horus Heresy, dusted them off a bit, and then the Pariah Nexus thing basically had them both amped up by possessed demons, Blackstone and also Admech technology caches, which did seem to be quite a lot going on for any one thing. According to the stream, they sort of sound like they're sort of psychically attuned constructs, able to be directed by the whims of the sorcerers, but also operate better in areas where psykers are less powerful, such as the Pariah Nexus. I feel like they were going for a sort of Egyptian god tomb guardian statue type vibe here. They feel like they've gone for a slightly static and statuesque style pose, but that might have been the idea between the statue and robot vibes they've got going on. And it looks like these were the answer to the exact 2 rumour engines that I suspected might be them, the one of these stripy leg plates, plus the claw that you can see on the one on the right. It does seem they've got really quite a lot of options with different weapons. Looks like they've got a mainline energy weapon that you can swap out for a melee claw. They also mentioned that they can take a heavy warp flamer. I guess that might be the secondary weapon on the one on the left, and then on the back they've got a Hellfire missile rack, I guess similar to what you get on the Scarab Occult Terminators there. I feel like these are kind of fun, quite nice for Thousand Sons to have another mainline unit, and Psychic Automata was maybe a slightly unexpected but really quite fun way to go, and does call back to their Horus Heresy things. For the Death Guard, it did seem likely to me, but it is now confirmed that the Lord of Poxes is the only miniature reveal they're getting this time, so basically a new power armoured character, yet another option to lead Plague Marines, and they do have quite a lot there already. I guess he's being a bit more of an actual generic Lord equivalent as opposed to one of the support characters from the Feet of Virion ones that they already have. In their last preview they said that that big blight generator on his back will give some sort of defensive rule, feels likely to be either stealth or cover. He's got a plasma pistol and then a great big plague weapon on his back. I guess that might have a sort of heavy plague weapon stat line. I'm not sure if his arrival might mean that the removal of the generic Lord from Death Guard. It still remains to be seen if they're going to be sending any generic things to Legends in this latest batch of Codexes. Then for the Deity Codexes, there's a trio of Battleforces. I'll follow up to talk through these a bit more in their own video, but for the Death Guard they've got a Pox-wrought Vector one. This one's going heavy on the Demon engines with one of each of their unique ones with the Plague Burst Crawler, Bloat Drone and Blight Hauler. Then the new Lord of Poxes with some Blight Lord Terminators and a squad of Plague Marines. If you want to start a Death Guard army, I feel like that does look like really quite a fun, well-rounded one. Quite a lot of fairly big, threatening and tough models. For the Thousand Sons, we've got a Warp Flame Thrallband, so I guess as they've been before, these are named after certain detachments. We've got their trio of Exalted Sorcerers kit, and then one squad of Rubik Marines and a squad of Scarab Occult Terminators, and then not one but 2 units of those new Sekhetar robots. Again, broadly that feels like really quite a good introduction to Thousand Sons there. Games Workshop maybe taking a hint there and not having a Zangor in sight. And then finally for the World Eaters one, we've got the Gorestorm Slaughter Pack, headed up of course by the new Slaughterbound, and then a big 3 units of 8 bounds that you could build as the Exalted ones or the regular ones, and then backed up by 2 units of Jackals. That does feel like it's a fairly perfect accompaniment to the current Khornate Combat Patrol box set. Maybe the only downside is going a bit too heavy on the Jackals if you got both of those. As ever with these Battleforce box sets, I suspect that they'll do the tactic of having these get released at the same time as the Codex, and then you have to wait for the individual character miniature to come out if you just wanted to buy that one separately. Unlike for previous streams, they haven't announced the new Combat Patrol contents. There've certainly been some rumours around, but I'm sure we'll hear some confirmed contents in the not too distant future. Then for the Chaos Codexes, they're all going to be getting some funky limited edition ones as well. We already saw the Emperor's Children, which has some metal objective tokens, part of a big Chaos coin that can magnetise together, and then some reference cards for the datasheets and a few other things, plus of course a funky Codex. All the others will also get their copies of them as well, all featuring their own Demon Primarchs and some fun quotes and things from them. Apparently there's only going to be 1,600 of each one of these produced. I'm sure they'll cost a fairly eye-watering amount and all get sold out in seconds to scalpers. Finally for the Forces of Chaos, as mentioned, they did confirm that there's no Chaos Demons Codex coming for 10th edition. It's been basically growing ever more confirmed with all the things that they've said about it, but they haven't decided to actually confirm it up to this point. I guess trying to avoid any big backlash all at once by first hinting at it loads and then fully announcing it when there's other exciting stuff going on. At least for the rest of 10th edition, they're not going anywhere rules-wise, though I feel like there's a reasonable chance they might update the digital index and send some of the things that they no longer sell to Legends. There's a fair few resin characters that's probably for the chop at some point, but otherwise they'll be playable with their index rules guaranteed at least until the end of 10th, using the 6 detachments between their 2 core ones with the Incursion and their new Shadow Legion, and then the 4 Deity Grotmas ones on top of that. For some reason it seems that they've decided to do a bit of an about take on Karalak as well. The 3-headed Khornate Fleshhound leader is going to be back in the index, and it did seem a bit of a weird decision to take him out in the first place, to be honest. He is a fairly recent miniature, and Fleshhounds were definitely going to be staying. They notably didn't say anything about the Seeker Chariots though, so it sounds like they're still gone. Back to the new models and reveals though, and there's 3 more kits and plenty of other interesting stuff for 40k. For the Grey Knights, it looks like they've got an updated Dreadknight kit, so it seems that a full Grey Knight refresh with Terminators and Strike Marine equivalents being redone at Primaris scale isn't this time around. And as best I can tell, I think that the Dreadknight kit is just an upgrade sprue being added into the existing one, so more of an expansion of that as opposed to an entirely new miniature. I must admit I was tripped up on that originally as they talked about it as if it were new, but it looks like it's more parts being added in to represent a Grand Master in Nemesis Dreadknight, so a newer sprue with optional parts that you can use to upgrade that one. I kind of feel like the Dreadknight is the sort of kit that a bunch of people might not necessarily have minded them resculpting at some stage. It's perhaps one of 40k's lesser loved ones, with the whole baby carrier aesthetic that it's got, but it seems that it's just upgrades this time around, and the new weapon options added on the new frame presumably are a big melter weapon called the Subliminator. I guess that'll be psychic in some way like the rest of the Grey Knight shooting, or most of it. There's then a Nemesis Mace and a Nemesis Flail to add to the additional weapon options. The aesthetic parts to make it look like a Grand Master, with the Iron Halo I think there. And I think that that book part is new as well. And then it looks like it's got some sort of missile launchers on the chest of the guy as well. Or maybe some Fragstorm grenade launchers. I guess to maybe help differentiate them a bit, perhaps some of these weapon options are going to be Grandmaster only, and just mark them out as having some different kit versus the regular ones. Here's the new options versus the current kit side by side. Looks like the Grandmaster assembly swaps out really quite a lot of the bits on the front of the Terminator guy. It swaps out the knee plates for the Walker, and then of course you've got the weapon options. Most of the rest at least remains fairly similar though. Here are a few of the other shots of the thing. You can see the big melter weapon here, and here's a couple of pictures of the War Mace option. Again, that'll be a new weapon added in, and I guess that could be something that could provide some serious anti-tank for the Grey Knights who definitely need it. They had to upgun the heavy Psy Cannon to make it more anti-tank, and it does seem to be a bit of a problem for their army. Finally, here's the Codex cover for Grey Knights, apparently coming a bit after the Deity Codexes, and apparently they will also get 5 detachments. One of them was confirmed to be a vehicle and walker-centric one called a Sanctic Spearhead. Lastly, for the Grey Knights, they'll be getting a battle force as well. This one's a Sanctic Conclave, so I guess that could be another detachment name potentially. Looks like it's 10 Terminators, 10 Strike Marines, and a Dreadknight. Maybe just feels like a slightly bigger version of the Combat Patrol set that they have currently. Finally, for the big 40k reveals, we've got Tyranids Ravagers versus an Admech Servitor Battle Clade, and the next Kill Team box set, hot on the heels of the Blood and Zeal one, is going to be called Kill Team Typhon, again set on the hive world of Vulcus, and apparently some Tyranids Raveners undermining the Great Gun. Typhon's the name of a Tyranid hive fleet, and they do seem to be painted up in that colour scheme, though apparently these more represent seeded organisms that have been on the planet for a long time, as opposed to necessarily being an imminent invasion. As well as the two new units, there'll also be a techno-archaeologist for the Admech, some Hormagaunts for the Tyranids, a bunch of Tyranid terrain, which that brood nest was just one piece of, and then the usual kill team content with rules and counters. It feels like quite a big box in terms of the content for this one, so it makes me wonder if it might cost a bit more than some of the previous ones that we've had. For the Tyranids, they've basically got a new brood of Raveners, an updated set of sculpts for maybe one of their slightly older kits. I feel like there was a bit of hope out there for something like some new plastic shrikes. Seems that we're going for burrowing warriors as opposed to winged ones this time though. It looks like the Ravener kit is going from a 3 model kit to a 5 model kit. Still low for a kill team, but they're at least fairly big meaty models as 40k goes. And like the rest of kill team things, they're able to specialise and will either be assembled as standard Tyranid Ravener warriors, or can each have their own specialisation. There's a prime leader of them in the centre there, a Feltalon with what looks like envenomed blades there it would appear, a Tremorcide that maybe looks like it's got some sort of sensory sort of biomorphs there, and then 2 more in a Ravener Venom Spitter and a Ravener Wrecker. Looks like the Venom Spitter one has got some sort of ranged attack, and the Wrecker's got some big improved claws. Here's the set of them all put together. This means that they should come with some sort of changed up Warhammer 40k datasheet to represent all that new gear. I feel like at least some of it will get some 40k rules things, though for some reason they didn't want to confirm that they definitely would be getting a datasheet for 40k in the stream. I'm not sure if that's just because they don't know, or they've got a bit of a policy of not saying until it actually happens. Basically all the other kill teams with meaningfully different gear have got 40k datasheets though, so I don't see why it to be any different with these. The Tyranids also got their terrain pieces as well. I think these ones are quite fun, a bunch of things that certainly harkens back to old style Tyranid art. What looks like some spore chimney bits there, there was that brood nest that we saw that was similar to the Forge World terrain, and all manner of other Tyranid bio-nastiness there. Then for the team opposing them, there's going to be an Adeptus Mechanicus one, and similar to the rest of the kill team ones, they've got quite a lot of new stuff coming, and it's not just an upgrade kit. And this one's basically the return of on-foot servitors to the Admech, something that did feel like it was missing after the small unit of them went away. It would be a shame if they just went and didn't come back, given that they're quite a big part of 40k lore. This team's headed up by a techno-archaeologist, so that's the existing model. So you get that character if you pick up this set, I suppose, and then otherwise the one that's actually in charge of the servitors themselves is called an Underseer, hovering around there with what looks like a great big command and control thing on his back. Then for all the lobotomized techno-slaves that he controls, you get a good variety of different servitors. There's a couple of gun ones, here with a heavy bolter, and I think an arc weapon of some sort there perhaps. There's a few specialist ones with a breacher, a techno-medic, and one called an auto-proxy, which maybe is a bit of a scanner one perhaps. And then a bunch of combat servitors, which I think might be armed with either a flame weapon or perhaps a phosphor blaster sort of variant, a little stubby weapon of some sort on their right arms. In any case, here's the full team of them put together. I'd guess when they get their 40k datasheet, it's going to be the Underseer plus the 8 servitors. I guess like a lot of kill teams might be a little bit non-specialised, a bunch of close range or slightly bullet catcher style ones, a couple of heavy weapons and a boss. I think it's nice to see maybe a few more standard looking servitors return to 40k though. It didn't feel right that Admech could only really field the Catastrophe battle servitors as their options for those. Beyond new miniatures, there were some other things for 40k though. First up, there's the announcement of a new chapter approved mission set. This one was something that was fully expected to be happening sometime in summer. I think that it was around about May to June that the Pariah Nexus one came out. It looks like for this mission deck they're not going for any sort of location theming, they've just merely called it 2025 to 2026. I guess underlining that there'll be a new one in 2026. They do tend to release mission packs yearly. This will have a new core way to play for Warhammer 40k. I guess the main focus for a lot of people might be on the standard 2000 point Strike Force games. the ones that tend to get used in tournaments and maybe the most standardised way to play. Interestingly though, they've got a couple of different options in this one, where they've got one for asymmetric missions with different deployments and different sides going to try and do slightly different things, and then they have some more tailored ones for incursion specific missions, so aiming to tailor things slightly to the 1000-point version of the game if you are going for smaller scale conflicts. Then the other twist that they've mentioned is they've taken out secret missions and swapped them out for challenger cards, which is going to be a bit of a catch-up mechanic of one sort or another. It sounds like you get some options to catch up if your side is trailing by 6 victory points or more at the start of a turn, which I feel like might add a bit of a weird dynamic. I guess it doesn't hurt to give some benefits to the player that's trailing, but on the other hand I'd probably hope that these won't be too powerful, as I feel like certain armies can maybe not score so well right at the start but might still go on to score very, very well by the end of a game. So could well have been on track to win anyway, even if they trailed a bit initially, and might not necessarily have needed any extra help along the way. I guess we'll find out exactly what that means in due course though. They did give us a few card teasers of the mission deck. Looks like there's different deployments for Dawn of War between Incursion and Strike Force. They've got an example of the unusual asymmetric deployment here, with a defender deploying in a sort of arrowhead kind of formation. And then we've got a couple of examples of the challenger cards. Looks like you can either use a 0 command point stratagem. The example here is that you can move something through terrain at no penalty like a monster or vehicle, or then choose to have basically a bonus secondary objective where you can score some victory points, and another one that you could draw gives you a big damage boost on one unit, re-rolling hit rolls of 1 and wound rolls of 1, and one action option that you can only do if your units are greater than 15 inches away from the enemy. I guess that feels like there'd be at least somewhat smallish boosts. I guess the big shooting buff could be fairly scary on a big nasty firepower unit though. They feel like a fun idea at the very least. Otherwise for Warhammer 40k there was another Crusade book announced as well. This one was kind of surprising given that they've only just had one, talking about the Nakmun Gauntlet. For this one though we're going for a rather storied Warhammer 40k location with a return to Armageddon. Sounds like after being stomped flat by orcs twice over, Armageddon's in for another round of chaos. They do have history with Angron appearing there. It seems that Angron's coming back for a second round at the fight as well. Apparently the idea is that there's a Blood Crusade of the World Eaters descending on the world, and then it's the Grey Knights, Black Templars and Space Wolves that are pitted against them here. Maybe coincidentally all Imperial armies that have their Codexes coming out soon. They've got 43 pages worth of lore and background, plus a branching tree campaign with a bunch of different possibilities. Finally for Warhammer 40k focused stuff, they gave us a new roadmap. I might talk about this a little bit more in a follow-up video sometime in the next day or two, but basically their latest teaser is that at the moment we're getting Thousand Sons, World Eaters, Death Guard and the new Space Wolf box set in the near future. I guess these will probably be after the main Emperor's Children release wave, which doesn't seem to be listed. And then for the future we've got coming next as Chaos Knights, Imperial Knights, Black Templars and Grey Knights, so it seems that Knight symbol did mean both flavours of Knights. And then in the future it looks like we've got Salamanders, Imperial Fists and Leagues of Votann. I don't know if that's doubling down on saying that Space Marines are going to be getting some sort of individual supplement books there. I'm not 100% sure why they might need 2 pictures if that were the case. Certainly looks like it's going to be a pretty busy time for Warhammer 40k. Lots of codexes, new rules, new battle forces and new miniatures coming out. Finally for miniature reveals, I did think it was quite interesting to see Grand Cathay realised for the old world. They're basically one of the Total War fan favourite factions that didn't get a release in Warhammer Fantasy, but just kind of cool to see a new range for them being done. In general, for most of the old world armies that they've refreshed, it's tend to be the returning of previous plastic, metal and resin kits, and then occasionally doing a few Forge World things to support them. For the force of Grand Cathay, it looks like they've got 7 different plastic kits coming out, the Jade Warriors as their battle line things, with the options for a Shield Bearer unit versus Pikes, Jade Lancers for the cavalry unit. The unit's all very Eastern, Oriental or Chinesey sort of themed. They've got a bit of gunpowder going on with a Grand Cannon or Fire Rain rockets with a fun cast of weapon loaders. A character riding a dragon-like thing called a Longmar. A set of Gate Masters as more minor characters. A great big striding construct style thing called a Cathay and Sentinel. Looks like there's a few different options to build this one. Really quite a fun miniature in a sky lantern, basically a sort of Chinese lantern style thing that's also a hot air balloon and you can fire some gunpowder and drop some bombs out of. And then finally the faction commander in Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon, getting both a human and draconic form depending on how she feels like transforming at any given moment. Overall quite a fun little set of miniatures. I'm sure this will make at least some Total War fans happy. In any case, that's a pretty massive roundup of Warhammer 40k reveals there. Not too often that you get a launch box plus the reveals of another 4 codexes and another 6 model kits spread across a bunch of factions. Feels like that's probably going to be enough stuff to keep us occupied for quite a long time. Not sure how much 40k stuff they'll be previewing before summer at this point now. As ever, massively look forward to hearing your thoughts and takes on it, and hopefully I'll be cycling back to talk about a few elements in a bit more detail in later videos. I'll hopefully talk about the battle forces for another one. Otherwise though, before I go, I'll just talk about the channel giveaway for the Space Wolf box set. Seems like a good one to do for the May channel giveaway, and same as the Emperor's Children one, this one will be for 8 copies of that big box. Looking like they're getting 28 Space Wolf miniatures in total, between Grey Hunters, Bloodclaws, the characters and the Headtakers and their pets. As ever with the channel giveaways, there's 2 equal ways to enter. Either you can support Auspex Tactics on Patreon for any amount. That gets you automatic entry into the giveaways each month, and it's the main thing that supports me making videos on YouTube too. Or alternatively, you can enter via social media completely for free. To do that, you support the channel by boosting the algorithms, subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking the Facebook page, and then for the actual entry to the draw, a Facebook post goes live on the 1st of May from midnight UK time. Respond to that post within the next 24 hours with a picture of any 40k mini or imagery along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo, the last bit just to deter Facebook bots and spammers. After the 24 hours is up, I lock the post and do the draw, using a random number generator to pick out the winners from the combined pool of Patreon and Facebook entries. Obviously we don't know exactly when these will come out yet, but they'll be posted after I get my copies of them. Check out the links in the video description to the Patreon or the Facebook down in the comments below. And at the moment there's still a chance to enter for the April one for Fulgrim, 10 copies of the new Demon Primarch on offer, or swapped out for any other plastic Primarch, or any big Centerpiece 40k kits, and this one's got all the same rules, but swap out the dates for April rather than May. In any case though, I'll leave that one there now. Let me know your thoughts as to all the news and reveals down in the comments below. Certainly look forward to hearing your takes. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming. I do tend to post new ones just about every day. Finally, if you'd like to help support the channel, as mentioned, Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well. Besides giveaway entries, there's also a few other things, seeing occasional videos early, occasional votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and also a few other things like names in the credits for higher backers. If any of that's of any interest or you'd like to support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.